Three disasters in rapid succession. Thousands and thousands of victims of Hurricane Ike settled in at shelters for what could be weeks, if not months, and others waited wearily in line for food, water, ice, and gasoline as it becomes increasingly clear the disaster along the Texas coast would be measured perhaps not by its death toll, but by the misery it spread. A slow motion, continuing disaster or tragedy, and a man-made disaster too. Almost 3 days after the storm steamrolled the coast, the extent of the damage was still coming into focus, with rescue teams finally reaching some of the hardest hit and most inaccessible places, where entire neighborhoods were obliterated, like totally wiped off the map. While the number of confirmed deaths was still remarkably low at 37, although it could go higher, in Texas and 8 other states, the distress was considerable. Nearly 37,000 people were in shelters in Texas, and there was no word on when those living in the most devastated towns, such as Galveston, might possibly be able to return. There's nothing to return to. Not really. An estimated 2.2 million people in Texas alone remained without power. Many service stations had no gasoline or no electricity to pump it. With no running water, some residents were dumping toilet waste directly into the sewers. That's a very bad idea. And many major highways were still underwater. Thousands and thousands of hungry and panicked people. Victims grew irritable as they waited for food and water. Some relief stations ran out of supplies, leaving thousands hungry and panicked. Lines of cars stretched for miles, or 2 hours or longer, at Texas Southern University for packages of bottled water and bags of ice. The only supplies on hand until 3 18-wheelers showed up around noon. Cheers broke out when it was announced there were boxes of chili, a small bag of Frito chips, and 1 cookie. Why didn't they call for volunteers when they knew this was going to hit? They saw the hurricane coming, grumbled one resident, who waited in line but was told to drive to a station in another part of Houston, closer to her neighborhood. "This is wrong. This is bull," she said. Snapshots of damage were starting to emerge everywhere. In Galveston, oil coated the water and beaches with an oily sheen, and residents were ordered off the beach. Dozens of burial vaults popped up out of the soggy ground, many disgorging their coffins. Galveston officials guessed it would be months, yes months, before the island could even reopen, and warned that mosquito-borne diseases are starting to spread. Cows that had escaped flooded pastures wandered around a shattered neighborhood. An elderly man was airlifted to the hospital, his body covered with hundreds and hundreds of mosquito bites after his splintered home was swarmed. Galveston could no longer safely accommodate its population, the mayor said. "Quite frankly, we are reaching a health crisis for people who remain on the island. There's no reason to stay, and there's no reason to come back. These cities are like almost totally destroyed." Thousands in shelters. In San Antonio and Austin, thousands streamed into 284 shelters set up by the state. As local officials sternly warned it wasn't safe to come home, many people wondered how long they would be there, how they would pay for meals, and what was happening to the rest of their families. More than 1,300 people who had spent several nights Houston's George R. Brown Convention Center complained that they could not get information about how to find food and clean clothes. One man said at one shelter he had barely eaten. They give you a little cup of water every 4 hours. They gave us one peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We were in there for about 18 hours before we could even go outside and get some air to get away from the stench. Here are the facts, Texas Governor Rick Perry said. You never are going to get ice and water into an area that's been impacted like this hurricane, Perry said after touring damaged towns. It's not going to get in fast enough. I know there are a lot of frustrated, angry people out there. At a shopping center in Houston, honking motorists in a line of cars stretching way more than a mile advanced quickly to the front as if in a fast food drive-in, as only 15 Texas National Guardsmen rushed to load crates of food, ice, drinks, and other non-perishable supplies into the trunks of the autos. Let's go, let's go, let's go, Guardsmen barked at motorists in military fashion, rushing to fill their cars and move the line of cars quickly before they ran out. We're just taking whatever they give us. Doesn't matter. No electricity, no gas, no water pressure, no money, no job. We don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. We don't know when we are going to get anything. And search and rescue teams are now worried that the worst devastation has yet to be found. Yes, this is a monumental disaster. It's a very big disaster, and a tragedy too. It's also a man-made disaster. And this is connected to the meltdown on Wall Street. The fallout, the meltdown, devastating day reshapes U.S. financial system. Mighty investment banks were laid low. Stocks put in their worst performance in 7 years. At least $700 billion was washed away on Wall Street. The crisis set in motion more than a year ago by a series of bad mortgage bets produced its most devastating day yet Monday, leaving investors to wonder which domino would fall next and whether anywhere was safe for their money. The carnage spread to Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost more than 500 points, more than 4%, its steepest point drop since the day the stock market reopened after the September 11th attacks in 2001. Approximately $700 billion evaporated from retirement plans, government pension funds, and other investment portfolios. Yes, that's a meltdown. And it's happening about the same time the hurricane was happening. And then there's the train wreck in California. Nobody knows exactly what caused it. Well, so far. But anyway, the train wreck didn't have to happen because they have these collision sensors that they could have put on the trains or the tracks to automatically shut down both of the trains before they ever collided. But they've only put it on like 240 miles of tracks in the United States. But they have the technology to have put it on the tracks to have prevented that terrible, horrible accident or train wreck. That happened about the same time the hurricane was coming in or happening also. So you got the hurricane, the train wreck, and then the meltdown on Wall Street, all about the same time within 2 or 3 days. Yes, within 3 days. No, everything is connected in this world. Everything is connected, and everything happens for a reason. And yes, these are more signs of the end times, transition days, and there are many signs.